Barack Obama has a message for Democrats. Stop moping. Here was part of his comments at the DNC fundraiser last night. If you are one of these folks who's watching cable news at your cocktail parties with your friends and you are saying civilization is collapsing and you are nervous and worried, but that is not where you are putting all your time, energy, and money, then either you don't actually think civilization is collapsing or you are not pushing yourself hard enough. And I would push harder. He went on to say we shouldn't expect politics to be entertaining all the time. Sometimes you're just in a church basement making phone calls and eating cold pizza. Let me bring in Van Jones, CNN political commentator and host of the Van Jones Show. Obama, though, giving some tough love to Democrats. How do you think it's being received?
Probably well, just because we need that. I think, listen, I was much more prepared for Trump to win than for Kennedy to resign. That's, to me, a much bigger deal. You know, you win presidential elections, midterms, whatever, but Supreme Court swing votes come around, once in a generation.
So you think this is even more groundbreaking or earth-shattering?
Much bigger deal with a much longer timeline and many more rights, for women, LGBTQ, et cetera, at risk. So you need sometimes for somebody like Barack Obama, President Obama, to come forward and remind people, listen, this is not beanbag. Sitting around here fanning ourselves and liking the things, that's not work. When Obama ran and won in 2008, 2012, everybody that I know was working. People were doing phone banks. People were going to swing states. People were raising money. I haven't seen any of that. I didn't see it in 2016, and I haven't seen it since. I see a lot.
Even with the marches that we're seeing out there that are bringing people out.
I love marches, but marches that's not voting. Retweeting smart stuff is not registering voters. It's not the hard work. And so he's got the credibility like nobody else to remind people, do you know what it means to actually fight for what you believe in? Not complain, not be upset, but to put in that hard work. When you said the cold pizza, a lot of people's heads started nodding because, that's what it was when he ran.
You think that ultimately led in part to his success. It's not just the Supreme Court news this week, but this ongoing border situation with families being separated and now not being reunited as quickly as some would like or as was expected. And Hillary Clinton is commenting on this situation, saying her worst fears about the Trump administration are coming true, telling The Guardian this: the question of how we reunite the children who were taken from the parents is one that's keeping me up at night, is the one that's keeping me up at night. Is that the one keeping you up?
Well, yeah, true. And I tell you one thing, if she were president and something like this happened on her watch, inadvertently or on purpose, and it was time to fix it, she would get it fixed. I don't think anybody thinks that she's somebody who wouldn't have pulled together an interagency process, appointed somebody to be responsible to get this thing done, given them a deadline, and made the thing happen. Democrats and Republicans gave her high marks at State Department, except for Benghazi. Don't forget, they used to say, Hillary Clinton's great, Obama's terrible when she was Secretary of State. So there's a way to get this done, but right now there is not a single human being in the entire federal government with the responsibility for getting these kids back. So that means it's not going to happen. You got to have somebody with authority and a timeline and direct line to the president to get it done. If Hillary Clinton were president and something like this happened, I guarantee you those basic steps would be in place. They are not in place. She's not the only one staying up late at night worried about it.
Senator Dick Durbin yesterday actually said that when he talked with HHS officials and DHS officials and DOJ officials yesterday, he asked them the question, do you know how many kids and parents have been separated? And they couldn't answer that question. Their answer was, we just don't know. But I also want to ask you about this upcoming interview you have, because we have the Van Jones Show also going to air this weekend on Sunday night at 7 o'clock. You talked with Senator Tim Scott about how to work with President Trump. Let's listen to a clip.
You've had this conversation and some conversations like this with President Trump.
Yes.
How do you judge whether you're making progress there? Some people want you to kind of be the racial Trump whisperer in some way, How do those conversations go? I just want to understand, how you see a Donald Trump.
Well, they're hard. Yeah, they're hard. They're painful. They're uncomfortable to sit in the Oval Office and have a conversation with the president about things that you strongly disagree about. He didn't change his perspective. I certainly can't change my perspective. Mine's educated by my experience, so that helps me. But the way it closed, I thought, gave me reasons to be hopeful. It closed with, Tim, I don't see what you see, what can I do to make things better? That was a shocking response. I was surprised after the conversation that his response was, help me see a better way. And my answer is always not for him to speak about issues in a way that he doesn't sincerely believe, but for him to actually do something. And our opportunity zones was the outcome of help me help other people, Tim. And I said, support my opportunity zone legislation. He said he would, and 24 hours later he was. That allowed the Senate to put it into the tax bill.
You seemed surprised, Van, because Scott had previously said that this president was racially insensitive.
Yeah, well, listen, it was a remarkable conversation. You don't have enough people in public life like Tim Scott, who is a problem solver's problem solver. He's not a bomb thrower. He's not bombastic. Even in the situation with the Donald Trump, White House, where, after Charlottesville and that massacre, Tim Scott was critical. He went in there, he talked to Trump. They couldn't see eye to eye, but somehow Tim Scott, in the middle of all that, got Trump to agree to support the opportunity zones, which is going to help a lot of poor people. So I'm trying to get more voices like that heard. I know you are as well. Even in the midst of all this, there are good people trying to do good things, and there's no better person in Washington, D.C. right now than Tim Scott.
Good to have you with us, as always. Van Jones.